It started like any other quiet morning. The sky over the cities was clear, the world busy with its usual rhythm. People going to work, children heading to school, aircraft crossing the blue above. No one knew that everything they had ever known was about to change. It began with a strange flicker in the upper atmosphere. At first people thought it was just a satellite or maybe some light reflection from the sun, but then the flickers multiplied. Within minutes, thousands of them appeared, small dots that grew larger, darker, and brighter all at once. The observatories were the first to sound the alarm. Astronomers watching through their telescopes saw formations moving in perfect order, too organized, too deliberate to be asteroids. The pattern was unmistakable. It was a fleet and not a human one. Around the world, news stations interrupted programs with breaking alerts. Unidentified objects entering Earth's orbit, the headlines read. People gathered outside, eyes lifted toward the sky, trying to understand what they were seeing. Governments tried to stay calm, but panic moved faster than any official message. In homes and cities, everyone looked up. The dots in the sky were now glowing, each surrounded by a faint blue halo. Some thought it was the northern lights appearing in strange new places, but soon, radar screens around the globe confirmed the truth. The objects were enormous, each the size of mountains. They were not meteors, not debris, not human technology. They were ships the Imperial Armada had arrived, from space. They looked like floating fortresses, metal giants drifting slowly toward Earth. Their surfaces shone with strange symbols, and their engines burned with colors no one had ever seen before. They came from beyond known space, from a region no human exploration had ever reached. For years, astronomers had detected signals from deep space, signals dismissed as natural noise. But those signals were not noise at all. They were the Armada's navigation codes. Within an hour, the invaders surrounded Earth in a massive ring of steel and fire. Every major city had one of those giant ships hanging over it like a silent predator. The world's sky changed color, turning into a pale shade of gray-blue. The moon disappeared behind the enormous shapes. It was the first time in history that every country, every government, and every person faced the same enemy at the same moment. Inside secret control rooms, the military leaders of Earth gathered. Communication lines that had been silent for decades came alive again. Nations that once distrusted each other now shared data, scanning the fleet, trying to understand its size and power. The numbers were terrifying. The fleet was larger than all the world's combined armies. Each alien vessel carried weapons capable of splitting continents. But Earth didn't immediately respond with violence. The humans waited, hoping to understand what the invaders wanted. Maybe they were explorers, or maybe this was just a show of strength. Yet, deep down, everyone knew. No civilization sent such power across the stars just to talk. Then, the message came. Every television screen, every radio, every phone, and every digital billboard went black for a second. Then a strange symbol appeared, an emblem shaped like a spiral sun. A voice followed, deep and calm, translated into hundreds of languages instantly. People of Earth, the voice said, you are now subjects of the Imperial Order. Your world is rich, your energy pure. Surrender your authority and you will be spared. The words spread across the planet like fire. In every city, people stopped moving, staring at the screens. Some cried, others shouted in anger, but most were silent. No one could believe that after centuries of progress, after all the wars and peace treaties, an enemy from the stars had come to demand their submission. On the high plains, in the deserts, in the oceans, human eyes turned upward with the same thought. We will not kneel. The invaders waited for a reply. Hours passed and Earth stayed silent. In orbit, the alien ships began to move, aligning their weapons toward the surface. The message came again, sharper this time. Your silence means refusal. Obey or be erased. Still, there was no answer, but beneath the calm, Earth was not unprepared. For decades, hidden beneath mountains and ocean floors, humanity had been building. The world's greatest minds had worked together under secret alliances, forming a defense network that even most governments didn't know about. Artificial satellites disguised as weather units held advanced energy shields. Deep under Antarctica, a command station pulsed to life. Old war bunkers that had been sealed for generations opened their gates once again. In small towns, people helped each other, packing supplies, guiding children to underground shelters. Soldiers quietly moved through streets not with panic but with purpose. Across the continents, humans began to do what they always did when threatened. They united. The alien ships hovered closer. The light from their engines painted the clouds in red and gold. For the first time, people could see their details. Massive wings stretching miles wide, strange towers, and glowing spheres rotating around their hulls. They looked like living cities, not machines. The Armada was not just an army. It was a civilization traveling in war form. One ship positioned itself above the Pacific Ocean. Its lower plates opened, revealing what looked like a massive cannon. A beam of light formed, aimed directly toward Earth's surface. People held their breath. But before it could fire, the beam suddenly flickered and vanished. Something had disrupted it. The Armada's communication channels were jammed. Somewhere beneath the Earth's crust, deep inside a control bunker, human technicians were working in silence. They had activated the mirror shield, a technology that could bend signals and distort targeting systems. It wasn't enough to win a war, but it was enough to confuse the enemy for a moment, and in war, a moment can decide everything. In the skies above, fighter jets scrambled, but not to attack. Their mission was to observe and relay. Every camera, every drone, every satellite focused on the alien fleet. The world watched as scientists and generals analyzed every motion, and still, Earth gave no reply. The invaders grew impatient. Several smaller ships broke formation, moving closer to the ground. They flew over the Atlantic and hovered above New York, London, and Tokyo. Their presence caused storms to form in the upper atmosphere. Lightning streaked across their hulls as if the planet itself was rejecting them. Then something unexpected happened. One of the smaller alien ships malfunctioned and crashed into the ocean. The explosion was enormous, sending waves across thousands of kilometers. But instead of despair, humans found hope. If one ship could fall, others could too. The myth of invincibility was broken in a single flash of light. People who had been hiding inside their homes now looked out with a different feeling: defiance. The fear was still there, but it was joined by something stronger. The human spirit had been tested before in wars and disasters, in loss, and it had never broken. All across the planet, that spirit began to awaken again. Engineers powered up hidden weapons platforms. Submarine fleets rose from the deep oceans. Orbital satellites silently adjusted their positions. The world had been waiting for a reason to come together, and the arrival of the Armada became that reason. As night fell, the stars vanished behind the alien ships. The sky looked unnatural, dark yet glowing, silent yet filled with tension. On the ground, soldiers stood ready in the shadows of tall buildings, staring up. They didn't know when the first attack would come, but they knew it was close. The Earth was holding its breath. In space, the Imperial commander watched through his massive viewport. He saw the small blue planet below, covered in clouds and oceans. To him it looked fragile, weak, simple, but what he didn't know was that beneath those clouds were billions of hearts that refused to surrender. The humans had not spoken a single word to the invaders, but their silence carried a message louder than any broadcast. Come if you dare, and so the waiting ended. The alien fleet began to move again, forming attack positions around the planet. Energy fields brightened and weapons charged. The first strike was moments away. But deep below the surface, far from the sight of anyone, a human hand pressed a button that had not been touched for 100 years. A quiet voice echoed through hidden corridors. Earth Command is online. The war for survival had just begun. The world had fallen into a strange silence after the first appearance of the Imperial Armada. People no longer spoke about work or school or politics. Every conversation began and ended with one question: what do they want? Governments across the globe worked day and night, trying to decode the enemy's signal, to understand the strange spiral emblem that had appeared on every screen. Scientists analyzed the frequency of the broadcast. Military experts compared the alien formations to their own battle tactics. But deep down, everyone knew what was coming. The silence was not peace. It was a pause before something terrible. Then, as dawn broke across Asia, the second message came. Every screen on Earth blinked again. Just as before, the same symbol appeared, shining like a burning sun. But this time the voice was not calm. It was colder, sharper, filled with pride. People of Earth, it said, you have ignored the mercy of the Imperial Order. We gave you a chance to surrender peacefully. You chose silence. Now you will learn obedience through pain. The words sent chills through everyone who heard them. The message repeated in every language, every corner of the planet. Then the screens went black. For a few seconds, there was nothing but darkness. Then came the image, an enormous alien commander standing before a background of stars. His eyes glowed faintly. His armor shimmered like liquid metal. He looked down as if speaking to something beneath him. "Your planet will serve," he said. "Your oceans will feed our fleets. Your skies will carry our ships. You will kneel before the Empire or you will be erased." The broadcast ended. For a moment, the world was frozen. Then chaos began. Crowds filled the streets in fear. Sirens wailed. Some people prayed. Others shouted in anger. But there were also many who stood quietly, eyes fixed upward, as if waiting for the end or for something greater. Inside the underground command centers, leaders of every nation had already joined a single line of communication. It was something that had never happened before. In one shared digital room, they spoke with only one purpose: to defend Earth. There were no more borders now, no more rivalries. Just one planet, one people facing the same enemy. Across the command halls, the tension was heavy. Generals and scientists worked side by side, checking the latest reports from orbit. The alien fleet had shifted positions. Several large ships had moved directly above major cities: Washington, Beijing, Moscow, London, and others. They weren't attacking yet. They were waiting. On the surface, life had changed completely. Air traffic was shut down. Power grids were rerouted to military systems. The world's skies were filled with unmanned drones scanning every corner of the upper atmosphere. In rural towns, families gathered together, listening to emergency broadcasts that gave no comfort, only instructions. People wanted hope, but none came from the leaders. Instead, it came from each other. Neighbors shared food. Strangers helped build shelters. Volunteers guided children underground. In those small, quiet moments, humanity's true strength began to show. Meanwhile, deep under the Atlantic Ocean, a hidden human station known only as Base Horizon was preparing its first move. The base was old, built decades ago during a time when space warfare was only theory. But its technology had evolved secretly. Now it was the beating heart of Earth's defense network. Dozens of technicians worked around glowing screens tracking the alien signals. Their goal was to understand the invaders' communication system and find a weakness. One of the signals stood out. It was not a command signal, but something else, almost like a rhythm, a pulse that repeated every few seconds. It was connected to the Armada's internal network. The discovery spread quickly through the base. "It's how they coordinate their ships," said one of the operators. "If we can break that rhythm, we can slow them down." The humans began their silent operation. Instead of sending attacks, they sent confusion, distorted frequencies, false signals, reflections that made the Armada think Earth's surface was shifting. It wasn't a weapon, but it bought time. In orbit, the invaders noticed the disruption. The commander of the Armada demanded an explanation from his subordinates, his voice echoing through the alien ships. "The humans are interfering. They dare to touch our systems," he said. "They must be punished." A few minutes later, the first strike came, not toward the cities, but toward Earth's oceans. A beam of bright light shot from one of the alien warships, cutting deep into the sea. The explosion that followed caused waves the size of skyscrapers. The message was clear: they could destroy at will. But even that did not break humanity's spirit. Around the world, people watched the destruction on their screens, their fear turning slowly into anger. They realized something important. These invaders did not come to negotiate or understand. They came to take, and that meant there was only one choice left: to fight. In hidden bases, Earth's defensive weapons were activated. Long-dormant satellite arrays came alive. The energy cores beneath the Arctic began to hum. Commanders gave quiet orders through encrypted channels. The planet was preparing for war, but not a reckless one. This was a careful, united response, a strategy designed by the best minds Earth had. Meanwhile, the alien fleet continued broadcasting threats. "You are surrounded," the voice repeated again and again. "Your efforts are meaningless. You cannot harm us." But the humans ignored the words. They knew that arrogance could be an enemy's greatest weakness. Night fell over most of the world, and with it came a strange beauty. The skies glowed faintly with light from the alien ships, casting silver shadows over mountains and cities. Some people went outside just to look. Despite their fear, they couldn't help but be awed by what they saw. A reminder that humanity had finally met something from beyond their world. It was terrifying, but also historic. In one city after another, people gathered on rooftops holding hands, sharing quiet moments of courage. They spoke softly about their families, their hopes, their memories. The invasion had taken away their sense of safety, but it had also reminded them of something deeper, that the human spirit could not be conquered by fear alone. Far above, the Armada's commander grew restless. He could not understand why Earth had not yet surrendered. To him it made no sense. In every other world they had conquered, resistance lasted minutes. But here, the silence was different. It was not fear, but defiance. He ordered his ships to prepare for a full demonstration of power. Massive energy fields began to form around the fleet. Each ship's underbelly opened, revealing strange glowing structures like hearts made of light. The sky flickered with green and blue flashes. The Armada was charging its weapons. On Earth, alarms began to ring in every base. "They're preparing to fire," shouted the operators. Satellites captured images of the incoming energy buildup. The world's militaries stood ready, though none of their weapons had yet been tested against something so large. And yet the leaders did not give the order to strike. Not yet. They were waiting for the right signal, the right timing. They had one plan left, a desperate one, that could change everything. Across the underground network, engineers activated the Echo Protocol, a defense system designed to turn Earth's own magnetic field into a massive interference shield. It wouldn't last long, maybe minutes, but it could block the first wave of attacks. Every second mattered. When the aliens fired, the world lit up. Gigantic beams of light crashed through the atmosphere, but before they could reach the surface, they scattered into bursts of color: red, green, blue, and gold. The Echo Protocol worked. For the first time, humanity had stopped an alien weapon. The shockwave from the deflected energy caused storms across the planet, but no major city was destroyed. People who had been hiding underground came out, watching the strange glowing sky in disbelief. "They missed," some whispered. Others smiled, realizing the truth: they hadn't missed. Earth had survived the first blow. In the command centers, cheers erupted. For a brief moment, fear turned into hope, but the leaders knew it was only the beginning. The aliens would attack again, stronger this time. Still, that one victory meant everything. It showed that humanity was not helpless. High above, the alien commander watched the failed strike, his face darkening. "They resist," he said quietly. "Then we will crush them completely." But Earth was already moving into its next phase. The humans had not just survived, they had learned. Every scan, every data signal from the failed attack was recorded. Scientists studied it, finding patterns and weaknesses. What the aliens saw as defiance, humanity saw as opportunity. And so, as the sun rose again, the people of Earth prepared. The message of domination had been received, but it had failed to break their will. If anything, it had done the opposite. It had united them like never before. The world no longer waited for rescue. It had become its own defender. The silence after the attack wasn't fear anymore. It was focus, the kind that comes before a storm. Humanity was ready to fight back. After the first failed strike from the alien armada, the Earth entered a strange, heavy calm. It wasn't peace, just silence filled with waiting. The skies were still dim, the alien ships still hanging above like dark mountains, unmoving but full of hidden energy. Humanity had survived the first attack, but everyone knew it was only the beginning. In cities around the world, life changed completely. The streets were empty except for defense patrols. People stayed indoors listening to radio updates and news briefings that never stopped. Electricity was carefully rationed. Lights were dimmed to hide from alien sensors. For the first time in centuries, the entire planet was acting like one single community, one that had no room for borders, pride, or politics. It was no longer about nations. It was about survival. In an underground base somewhere beneath the Swiss Alps, hundreds of screens glowed in the dark. Maps of Earth rotated slowly, showing the position of each alien ship. Military leaders and scientists worked side by side, speaking in short, calm sentences. Every detail mattered. Every second counted. They had learned something from the first wave of attacks. The Armada wasn't invincible. It could make mistakes. But the problem was not only strength. It was timing. The aliens had stopped moving after their failed strike, as if studying the planet's response. No one knew what they were planning next. That stillness above Earth felt heavier than any explosion. Outside, the world was holding its breath. In the ruins of some coastal cities where the alien beams had struck the oceans, survivors worked to rebuild communication lines. Drones flew silently above the waves, searching for fragments of alien metal or energy readings that could help scientists learn more. In one of those recovery zones, a small group of engineers found a strange piece of debris glowing faintly beneath the water. It was a part of an alien targeting system, damaged but still active. When the scientists studied it, they realized something remarkable. The system worked on a frequency slightly influenced by magnetic patterns. Earth's natural magnetosphere was confusing their targeting. That meant the planet itself was helping to shield them. The discovery brought new hope. If nature could confuse them, humans could turn that confusion into a weapon. In secret labs buried deep below the ground, human engineers began designing energy mirrors, devices that could bend, reflect, and distort alien signals. They didn't have alien technology, but they had creativity, and that was sometimes even stronger. Humanity had always found ways to turn weakness into strength. While the engineers worked, the world above grew quieter. Airplanes no longer flew. Satellites were hidden in shadow mode. The skies, once filled with noise and life, had become a silent battlefield waiting for its next move. Families stayed in underground shelters, sharing stories to keep their minds strong. They sang songs, lit candles, and reminded each other that no matter how strong the enemy seemed, Earth had something the invaders didn't: heart. Across the oceans, the fleets of Earth's unified navy stayed underwater, completely invisible. Submarines the size of small cities drifted quietly beneath the waves, carrying torpedoes that could travel hundreds of kilometers. Above them, the alien ships remained motionless, not knowing that beneath the surface thousands of human eyes were watching them, waiting for the order that would change everything. In orbit, Earth's secret weapon platform stayed hidden behind the moon. Long ago, during peaceful times, humans had built those stations to explore deep space. Now they were being transformed into defense systems. Their engines hummed softly, ready to ignite. For now, though, they stayed silent, blending into the darkness. But even as humanity prepared, fear was still there. Not everyone believed they could win. Some thought resistance would only bring destruction. In small towns, people whispered that maybe surrender was better than extinction. But those whispers didn't last long. The memory of the first attack, the waves that destroyed entire coastlines, reminded everyone that surrender wouldn't bring mercy. The invaders didn't come to rule, they came to take everything. So Earth's silence was not weakness. It was patience. It was the kind of silence that comes before thunder. In the command centers, humans watched the alien fleet closely. They noticed something new. The Armada had begun releasing small drone-like crafts, scouts that moved between the ships like sparks. Each one scanned parts of Earth's surface as if mapping something. The scientists realized what they were doing. The aliens were studying Earth's defenses, trying to understand why their first strike had failed. To counter this, human engineers activated a decoy network. They sent false heat signatures, fake energy readings, and illusionary signals into the sky. The Armada's drones picked up those false targets, believing them to be secret human bases. The aliens began focusing on deserts and oceans, exactly where humans wanted them to look. It was a dangerous game, but it worked. While the invaders scanned empty spaces, humanity kept building quietly. In underground tunnels and mountain bunkers, weapons were being assembled: rail cannons, pulse shields, plasma engines. But more importantly, new communication lines were being formed. Every continent was connected now, not by internet or cables, but by direct underground radio channels. The planet had never been this united. During this long waiting period, something else changed in the hearts of people. The fear that had once frozen them started to turn into determination. In every shelter, every base, and every ruined city, there was a common thought: they came for our home, and they will regret it. The quiet nights were filled with the distant hum of machinery. Above, the alien ships still glowed faintly against the dark. It was like two worlds staring at each other, waiting for who would blink first. Then one night, without warning, a blinding flash lit up the sky. For a second, people thought the aliens were attacking again. But it wasn't them. It was Earth's satellites coming back online. The human command had decided to test the global defense grid. One by one, massive shield systems activated across the planet, forming invisible barriers high above the atmosphere. The test worked. The shields held steady for 5 full minutes before powering down. It was enough to prove that Earth could fight back. When the alien fleet noticed this sudden burst of activity, they hesitated. The commander of the Armada observed from his flagship. He couldn't understand how such a primitive planet could resist. His advisors warned him that humans were unpredictable, but he didn't listen. He saw silence as weakness. He saw patience as fear. That misunderstanding would cost him dearly later. Meanwhile, down on Earth, the leaders decided to keep the shields secret. They wanted the Armada to believe their first strike had caused damage. Letting the enemy underestimate them was part of the plan. For the next several days, the world remained under the same eerie calm. The news networks broadcast only official updates. Children stayed in underground schools where teachers told them stories about old human victories, how people had survived wars, disasters, and plagues. They wanted them to remember that humanity always found a way to rise again. In the forests, animals moved strangely. The magnetic disturbance from the alien ships had confused birds and sea creatures. Yet even nature adapted faster than expected. It was as if the planet itself was preparing for what was to come. High in the mountains of South America, a hidden observatory kept watch on the Armada's movements. Using old telescopes upgraded with quantum lenses, scientists tracked the fleet's patterns. They noticed something small but vital. Their energy cores pulsed in rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. If that rhythm could be interrupted, it could cause chain disruptions across multiple ships. The discovery was sent directly to Earth Command. When the message reached the Global Council, the plan began to form. Humanity's counterattack was no longer a dream. It was a matter of timing. But before they could strike, they needed to survive the next wave. Everyone knew the Armada would not wait forever. So Earth stayed ready. Armies trained in silence. Engineers slept beside their consoles. Pilots memorized flight paths through the darkness of the upper atmosphere. No one complained. No one questioned. It wasn't about glory anymore, it was about defending home. And in that silence, something else grew stronger. Unity. People began to see each other differently. It didn't matter where someone was from or what language they spoke. Everyone shared the same sky, the same fear, and the same hope. The calm before the fire stretched for days, maybe weeks. Every sunrise felt like a warning. Every sunset like a countdown. The alien ships began to move again. Slowly, cautiously, as if they were testing Earth's patience. Deep inside Earth Command, the final preparations were complete. Energy cores were charged. Orbital weapons aligned. Ground-based cannons hidden in mountain ranges were powered up. The world waited for one signal, the moment to strike back. As one last precaution, the global leaders sent a single message into space. It wasn't a plea for help. It wasn't a warning. It was just 4 words broadcast on every frequency. This planet will fight. The message reached the alien fleet within minutes. For the first time, the invaders realized the humans weren't afraid, and then, just like that, the stillness of space began to break. The Armada's engines flared. Their formation shifted. The stars themselves seemed to tremble. The calm was over. The storm was coming. The long silence finally ended. The alien fleet began to move again, slowly at first, then with growing speed and precision. From space, their motion looked like a dark storm spreading across the stars. The Imperial Armada had finished studying Earth. They were ready to begin the real invasion. Every radar station on the planet picked up the same readings at once. Thousands of massive ships shifting position, forming attack lines across the upper atmosphere. The warning sirens screamed through every underground base, every city shelter, every command center. Soldiers rushed to their stations. Engineers strapped themselves into chairs. Pilots climbed into their cockpits, hearts pounding, breathing slow and deep. Earth had waited for this moment. Now, it was here. In the hidden bunkers beneath the mountains, the commanders gave the order to activate the global defense grid. Across the continents, enormous towers rose from the ground, structures built decades ago, once disguised as old satellites or weather stations. They began to hum with power, glowing faintly as energy surged through them. From orbit, the alien fleet saw the light. To them, it looked like a desperate attempt, primitive weapons trying to look strong. The Imperial commander gave a simple order in his deep voice: "Erase them." And with that, the sky exploded. The first alien salvo came like lightning from above. Massive energy beams cutting through the clouds, burning through the air, shaking the ground. Entire sections of the upper atmosphere glowed red. But Earth was ready. The global shield, powered by the planet's magnetic field, came to life. A thin layer of golden light spread across the skies, invisible to the eye but strong enough to deflect the first wave. From the ground, people could see the flashes, bright colors streaking across the heavens like a storm of fire. Children hiding in bunkers covered their ears as the air trembled. The world shook, but it did not break. In command centers, operators shouted updates. "Shields holding. Energy stable. No major breaches." For a brief moment, hope filled the room. But then the second wave hit. The aliens were adapting. Their beams became sharper, faster, designed to pierce the shield's weak points. Several defense towers overloaded and exploded in bursts of light. The shockwaves tore through the clouds. Over the Pacific, the energy barrier flickered. One section collapsed completely, exposing part of the planet's atmosphere. The alien fleet moved instantly, like predators sensing blood. Dozens of their smaller attack ships dove through the gap, entering Earth's skies for the first time. Their engines roared like thunder. This was it, the first real battle between two worlds. On the ground, anti-air systems activated. Railguns hidden beneath cities rose up and fired streaks of blue light into the sky. The sound was deafening, like a storm tearing the heavens apart. The first alien fighter was hit mid-air. It broke apart in flames, scattering molten metal across the clouds. The people watching from bunkers saw the falling wreckage and cheered. It was the first clear proof that the invaders could bleed. But there was no time to celebrate. More ships entered the atmosphere, firing plasma bursts toward Earth's surface. Explosions lit up the oceans and mountain ranges. Yet even then, humanity fought back with everything it had. In the deep seas, submarines launched missiles toward the skies. The torpedoes split open mid-flight, revealing smaller drones that changed direction and hunted their targets. The air became a web of fire and light. From the deserts, long-range cannons fired magnetic projectiles, massive shells that traveled faster than sound. The recoil shook the ground, but the shots were deadly accurate. One after another, alien ships fell from the sky, crashing into the oceans below. The water boiled where they landed. Above the clouds, the alien commander watched in disbelief. The humans were fighting harder than expected. Their weapons were primitive by the Empire's standards, yet their strategy was flawless. Every attack met resistance. Every strike was answered. In Earth's orbit, the hidden human fleet finally revealed itself. From behind the moon, dozens of warships emerged. Sleek, dark vessels built for one purpose: defense of home. Their engines glowed faintly blue as they accelerated toward the enemy. The aliens didn't expect this. Their scanners had shown no human presence in orbit. Suddenly, the humans were everywhere, coming from blind spots, from behind asteroids, from regions the Armada had ignored. The element of surprise was now Earth's greatest weapon. The first clash in space was brutal. The alien ships fired streams of plasma energy, but the human fleet split into smaller formations, weaving through the blasts like sparks in a storm. They fired rail cannons that sent dense projectiles straight through enemy hulls. Each impact created silent explosions, bursts of light that faded into the darkness. In the control center deep underground, commanders watched the data feeds. Every destroyed enemy ship meant fewer threats above. But every loss on their own side hit hard too. The room stayed quiet except for the voices giving coordinates, commands, and updates. There was no room for panic now, only focus. The battle raged for hours. Earth's skies glowed as if day and night had become one. The alien fleet kept sending more forces, but the humans refused to fall back. They used the planet itself as a shield, fighting near the upper atmosphere where the energy distortion was strongest. Down below, people in bunkers felt the tremors. Dust fell from ceilings, lights flickered, and yet no one screamed. They held each other, listening to the distant thunder of war above their heads. For the first time in history, humanity wasn't fighting itself. It was fighting together. As the battle continued, something unexpected happened. The aliens' communication system began to break apart. Their ships were no longer moving in perfect sync. The humans had activated a weapon that jammed their internal signals. It was a risky move, one that took months to prepare, but it worked. Without their coordination, the Armada's formation started to crumble. Smaller ships drifted out of position. Confused pilots tried to regroup, but Earth's fleets used that moment to strike hard. Coordinated missile storms hit the enemy's command ships, causing explosions that lit up half the sky. In space, Fragments of metal floated like falling stars. The once perfect fleet now looked scattered and wounded. Still, the aliens did not retreat. Their pride kept them fighting. The commander sent out a final, desperate order to his forces. Destroy everything. And they did. The next attack was pure chaos. The alien ships fired wildly, striking both their targets and their own vessels. Beams of light ripped through the clouds, scorching parts of the atmosphere. Some cities suffered heavy shock waves, windows shattering, buildings trembling. But Earth's shields held on just long enough to protect the people below. Inside one control bunker, a technician whispered softly as he watched the readings. They're losing control. The commanders gave the signal. Now, counterstrike. From hidden launch bays beneath the Earth's crust, humanity's most powerful weapons came online, massive projectiles known only as solar spears. They were designed to absorb sunlight and convert it into focused plasma bursts. For years, they had been just a secret project. Now they were unleashed. Thousands of solar spears shot into the sky, glowing like meteors flying backward into space. The alien fleet barely had time to react. The first wave tore through their central command ships, splitting them apart from the inside. The second wave hit the outer layers, sending ships spinning into each other. It was like watching a night sky filled with burning stars. In just minutes, the Armada's main formation collapsed completely. The surviving ships tried to retreat, but human fleets pursued them relentlessly. There was no mercy, no hesitation. Every soldier, every pilot, every commander fought with one single thought in mind: protect home. The alien commander's flagship was hit next. A massive explosion tore through its engines, sending it drifting helplessly toward the upper atmosphere. From the ground, people saw a bright object falling across the sky. Some thought it was a meteor, but it wasn't. It was the enemy's heart burning. As the flames faded, the skies grew quiet again. The sound of explosions gave way to silence. The storm was over. Earth had survived the first strike and won, but no one celebrated yet. Everyone knew it was only one battle in a much larger war. Above the clouds, debris floated, pieces of alien metal glowing like dying embers. Scientists began collecting the data immediately, studying every signal and every wreckage. In the quiet aftermath, the people of Earth stood together, looking up at the sky that had once terrified them. Now it was a symbol of hope. They realized something powerful that day. Humanity was not just a small world in a vast universe. It was a force that refused to be broken. The Imperial Armada had learned that the hard way. And somewhere in the cold emptiness of space, far from the planet they failed to conquer, distress signals were already traveling toward distant stars, calling for help. The war was not over. But Earth was no longer afraid, because for the first time humanity had shown what it could do when it stood together. And this time, the universe was watching. The smoke of victory still hung in the air, but the world was far from peaceful. The alien fleet had been defeated, yet the skies were filled with their wreckage, broken metal, drifting fire, and dying signals that whispered across the stars. For many, the sight of the shattered Armada was a relief, but for Earth's leaders it was a warning. If this fleet had come, others could come too. In the underground control centers, silence replaced the cheers. Everyone was exhausted. Monitors still flickered with the aftermath of the battle, explosions fading into cold blackness. Engineers sat motionless in their chairs. Pilots leaned against the walls, breathing heavily, sweat dripping from their foreheads. They had survived something impossible. But no one truly felt safe. The commanders gathered around a large holographic map. It showed the orbiting debris and the few enemy signals still active. The last message sent by the alien flagship had been a distress call. They all knew what that meant. Another wave might already be on the way. The decision was clear. Humanity couldn't just wait for another attack. They had to strike back first. For years, Earth had built its defenses in secret. Now, for the first time, those same facilities began shifting to offense. Deep within the frozen Arctic, massive gates opened beneath the ice, revealing hidden launch silos. In the deserts, vast underground hangars roared to life. The world was united under one purpose: to end the threat before it reached them again. The plan was bold and dangerous. Humans would follow the path of the fallen Armada, trace the source of their command signals, and find the Empire's nearest base. No one knew what they would face there, but one thing was certain: They couldn't allow another invasion to reach Earth. In orbit, the surviving human ships were repaired quickly. Robots worked alongside humans, welding broken panels, replacing engines, sealing hull cracks. Every hand was busy, every second mattered. The crews barely slept. They ate in silence, staring out at the remains of the enemy ships floating nearby. Somewhere among those wrecks, they could still hear faint transmissions, alien voices, damaged signals repeating the same words over and over, like echoes from a dying empire. No one understood the language, but the tone carried emotion, fear. That fear gave the humans strength. Within a week, the counterattack fleet was ready. Hundreds of ships lined up beyond the moon's shadow, engines glowing faint blue against the darkness. The largest vessel led the formation, a massive warship built from both human and alien technology, created after studying the captured wreckage. When the engines ignited, the fleet moved silently into deep space, disappearing into the black void. On Earth, billions watched through live feeds, holding their breath. Humanity wasn't just defending itself anymore. It was taking the fight to the stars. The journey was long and cold. The further they went, the quieter space became. Every day, the signal from Earth grew weaker until it vanished completely. Out there, beyond the safety of home, they had only each other. Through the windows, the stars looked endless. Sometimes they saw faint traces of alien wreckage floating among asteroids, proof that the Empire had fought wars before, maybe with others, maybe with themselves. It was a reminder that this galaxy was not kind. After several weeks, they reached their target, a system with 3 suns and a cluster of planets orbiting tightly together. Scanners picked up enormous structures built in orbit, glowing faintly with energy. That was the Empire's forward command base. It was far bigger than anyone expected. Entire continents of metal hung in space, connected by bridges of light. Thousands of alien ships moved in patterns, maintaining order. The humans watched in silence, realizing that what they had fought before was only a fraction of the true Armada. Still, retreat wasn't an option. The commanders gave their orders calmly. The fleet spread into attack formation. Drones were launched first to scan weak points. Data poured into the command center, maps, energy readings, shield frequencies. Every bit of information was crucial. Then, without a sound, the humans struck. Dozens of solar spears were fired from long range, streaking across the void like falling stars. The alien sensors detected them too late. The first explosions hit the outer rings of the station, tearing through massive platforms. Fire erupted across the metallic surface. The Empire's forces reacted instantly. Hundreds of ships turned and rushed toward the source. Their weapons glowed bright red, charging for attack. But this time, humanity had something new. Technology taken from the fallen Armada. Their ships now had adaptive shields, energy deflectors built from alien designs but powered by human ingenuity. The first wave of enemy fire hit the shields and scattered harmlessly into space. The humans fired back, striking with precision and power. For every human ship destroyed, 5 alien ships fell. The battle stretched across the system like a storm of light and motion. The human fleet moved fast, hitting key targets and vanishing before the enemy could regroup. For the Empire, it was chaos. They had never faced an enemy who fought like this. The Empire's central command sent reinforcement orders, but their communication lines were jammed again. Earth's engineers had created a stronger version of the jamming system used during the first battle. The alien ships were blind and deaf, unable to coordinate. In one corner of space, human bombers targeted the energy reactors of the main station. It was dangerous, too close for safety, but they pressed on. The explosions shook the entire structure, causing parts of it to break off and drift into darkness. At the same time, special strike teams landed on one of the smaller platforms. They wore reinforced suits and carried compact rail weapons. Their mission was simple but risky: plant an energy core deep within the station and trigger a controlled overload. The corridors were dark and filled with strange symbols glowing on the walls. The air vibrated with distant mechanical hums. The humans moved quietly, hearing alien footsteps in the distance. They avoided confrontation where possible, using stealth and precision. When they finally reached the reactor chamber, they saw the heart of the Empire's base, a massive sphere pulsing with blue energy. It looked alive, almost breathing. Carefully, they placed the overload core beside it, activated the timer, and began their retreat. As they left, the reactor started to shake, its light growing brighter. Outside, the battle continued fiercely. Human ships were running low on energy, and alien reinforcements kept coming. The commanders watched the clock. There were only minutes left before the core would detonate. Then it happened. A wave of light burst from the heart of the Empire's station, spreading across the sky like sunrise in the void. The shockwave hit everything, ships, debris, asteroids, and shattered them apart. The explosion was so large that it could be seen from the far edge of the system. The human fleet escaped just in time, engines burning at full power. Behind them, the Empire's command base disintegrated into pieces, consumed by fire and silence. For a few moments, space was filled with nothing but glowing dust. Then slowly the light faded, leaving only darkness. In the quiet that followed, the human crews sat speechless. Some closed their eyes. Some whispered prayers. Others simply stared into the void, trying to understand what they had done. They had destroyed the center of the Empire's power. The journey back to Earth was long, but it felt different this time. There was no fear, no doubt, only pride. Humanity had faced a civilization older and stronger than them, and still emerged victorious. When they finally approached the blue glow of Earth, everyone on the planet came out to watch. Screens lit up across cities and villages. Children pointed to the skies. The returning fleet looked like a moving constellation, a sign that the world had survived. And more than that, it had fought back. The fleet landed one by one, their hulls scorched and damaged, but their spirits unbroken. People cried as they watched the crews step out. No words were needed. The world already knew what they had done. In the days that followed, there were no celebrations of arrogance, no songs of conquest, only gratitude. Humanity had defended its home and secured its place among the stars. But in the quiet corners of research labs, scientists still listened to the signals that drifted across space. Some were just static. Others were faint whispers. One signal, however, was different. It was stronger, structured, and moving fast. It wasn't from the Empire they had defeated. It was from somewhere farther away. It seemed the destruction of the Imperial base had awakened something much larger, something watching from the dark. And once again, the people of Earth realized their story was not ending. It was only beginning. The stars were no longer silent, and humanity was ready to face whatever came next. Months passed after the great counterattack. The world slowly began to breathe again. The skies were quiet. The oceans were calm. From the surface, it almost looked as if life had returned to normal. Children went back to schools. Streets came alive again. People rebuilt what had been lost, brick by brick, heart by heart. But beneath that calm, there was still tension, like the quiet before another storm. In underground control rooms, radar systems kept scanning the dark. Every scientist, every commander knew that the war wasn't over yet. The empire that attacked Earth was powerful, but it wasn't the only one. Somewhere beyond the stars, something larger and more dangerous was watching. And then, one cold night, the silence broke again. A strange pulse hit Earth's outer sensors. It wasn't an attack, more like a signal, a warning. The frequency was unlike anything seen before. When scientists decoded part of it, a chilling truth appeared. The Empire's main homeworld had received Earth's message, the destruction of their armada. And now they were coming. This time there would be no scouts, no testing, no observation. The entire Imperial Core fleet was on the move, an army so large it covered an entire section of the sky. They were not coming to study. They were coming to erase. The moment the news reached the world's leaders, all doubts vanished. Humanity had no choice. They had to prepare for the final battle. Every factory switched to defense production. Engineers worked without sleep. The remaining human fleets were upgraded with stronger armor, new engines, and energy shields. Even the solar spears were rebuilt, bigger, faster, more precise. People volunteered everywhere. No one wanted to hide this time. Farmers, teachers, and workers all found roles, building shelters, delivering supplies, helping soldiers train. The fear that once divided nations was gone. Now the whole world stood as one. The human spirit had changed. They had seen the face of destruction before, and they had survived it. They were ready to do it again. As the Imperial Core fleet approached, telescopes showed their scale. Thousands of ships, stretching across space like a wall of darkness. Each vessel was larger than cities, glowing with power. It looked unstoppable. In orbit, Earth's defense grid activated again. This time, it was stronger, connected to a new power source deep inside the planet, a fusion core that drew energy directly from Earth's magnetic field. Blue light surrounded the planet like a shield of hope. Every soldier knew what they were fighting for now. Not just survival, but freedom. When the first wave of the enemy arrived, the sky turned silver. The clouds glowed as energy beams hit the upper atmosphere. The shield held, shaking violently but not breaking. From below, people watched the skies with clenched fists, whispering silent prayers. Then humanity answered back. From the deserts, mountains, and oceans, thousands of projectiles launched upward, each, one guided by AI but controlled by human strategy. The air was filled with the sound of roaring engines, streaks of light shooting toward the stars. The first explosions painted the sky in colors no one had ever seen before. Alien ships burst apart like fragile glass, scattering burning fragments. But for every ship destroyed, more kept coming. The core fleet was endless. It felt like fighting against the sea. In orbit, human pilots pushed their ships to the limit. The vacuum of space was full of light and fire. Lasers cut across the darkness. Explosions spread silently, glowing like distant suns. Every pilot knew the risks, yet none turned away. One of the ships carrying the solar spears reached close enough to fire its payload. The command was given. The weapon streaked forward, hundreds of glowing lines racing through the black sky. When they hit, the shockwaves rippled through the enemy ranks, tearing apart entire sections of the fleet. For a moment, the humans thought they had done it. But then, the core fleet shifted. From the center of the alien armada, a massive structure appeared, larger than anything humans had ever seen. It wasn't just a ship, it was a world, a moving fortress built from dark energy, absorbing light as it advanced. It was the Empire's main command vessel, the source of their power, its weapons charged with blinding brightness. The first beam fired and hit Earth's shield directly. The energy rippled across the atmosphere. Cities felt the shock. The ground trembled. Shields at 60%, the control officers reported. "Hold the line," came the reply. Earth's fleets regrouped and fired everything they had. Nuclear warheads, rail cannons, plasma charges, all focused on the central fortress. But the alien armor absorbed most of it. The surface glowed red, then darkened again. The fortress moved closer. It was less than a day away from Earth's orbit. That's when humanity used its final plan. Years before, scientists had developed something called the Solar Mirror Project. It was an experimental system that could redirect sunlight using orbital satellites. It was meant for energy, not war. But desperate times demanded desperate actions. The order was given. In orbit, hundreds of satellites shifted their angles, aligning perfectly with the sun. Beams of concentrated light began to focus into one single point, the alien fortress. The heat built up slowly, then rapidly, until even the massive ship began to glow. The aliens tried to fight back, firing energy waves to destroy the satellites, but there were too many. The sky became a battlefield of light. Pure sunlight turned into a weapon of survival. For the first time, cracks appeared across the alien fortress. The humans saw it. They pressed harder. The Earth's defense grid poured all its remaining power into one final strike. The fusion core at the planet's center began to overheat. Alarms screamed. If it failed, it could tear a hole in the ground itself. But there was no turning back now. The command was given. Fire everything. The combined blast, energy from the grid, light from the satellites, power from every ship in orbit, hit the alien fortress all at once. The universe seemed to flash white. For a few seconds there was nothing but silence. Then the fortress began to break apart. It cracked from the center, splitting into enormous pieces that glowed brighter and brighter. The explosion spread like a sunrise across the dark. Pieces of alien metal burned as they fell through space. The shockwave rippled across the solar system. pushing debris into distant orbits. When the light faded, the fortress was gone. The core fleet had lost its heart. The remaining alien ships scattered, retreating in all directions. They were no longer an army, just fragments of a once proud empire running from defeat. The battle was over. In the days that followed, Earth's skies cleared again. The golden glow of the shield slowly dimmed, revealing blue skies once more. People came out of shelters, looked up and cried, not from fear this time, but from relief. They had done it. Humanity had faced the impossible and survived. Across the world, no one talked about revenge. No one cheered for destruction. Instead, they spoke softly of unity, of courage, of how ordinary people stood together and became something extraordinary. In orbit, the last human ship drifted quietly among the stars. The crew looked down at Earth, glowing beautifully below. After everything, it still looked peaceful. Blue oceans, green lands, white clouds. Someone whispered, "We protected it." And for the first time, that statement felt real. Weeks later, scientists found something surprising among the alien wreckage. It wasn't a weapon or technology, but a message, an ancient record written in strange symbols. After translation, the meaning was clear. Those who fight to defend their home are stronger than any empire. It wasn't a threat. It was respect. It seemed that even in their defeat, the empire had recognized humanity's strength. And so, the Earth began a new age. An age not of war, but of understanding. Humans started studying the stars, not to conquer them, but to learn from them. The ships once built for battle were turned into explorers. The same skies that once burned with war now shone with hope. Yet deep inside, everyone knew one truth. If darkness ever came again, humanity would rise once more. Because this war had taught them something powerful. That courage doesn't come from weapons. It comes from people who refuse to surrender. And as long as such hearts existed, Earth would never fall. The stars were vast, full of unknowns. But this time the humans looked up at them not with fear, but with pride. Because they had proved that even against empires, even against the impossible, humanity could stand its ground and shine brighter than any star.